We are reading from the Bhagavad-Gita, first chapter, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Text number 31. Na cha shreyo anupashyami hatva sajanam ahave na kankshe vijayam krishnam na cha rajyam sukhani cha na nor cha also shriya good anupashyami do I foresee hatva by killing sajanam own kinsman ahave in the fight na nor kankshe do I desire vijayam victory Krishna O Krishna na nor cha also rajyam kingdom sukhani happiness thereof cha also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Isya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom or happiness. Purport. Without knowing that one's self-interest is in Vishnu or Krishna, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships, hoping to be happy in such situations. In such a blind conception of life, they forget even the causes of material happiness. Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes for a kshatriya. It is said that two kinds of men, namely the kshatriya who dies directly in front of the battlefield under Krishna's personal orders, and a person in the renounced order of life who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are eligible to enter into the sun globe, which is so powerful and dazzling. Arjuna is reluctant even to kill his enemies, let alone his relatives. He thinks that by killing his kinsman, there will be no happiness in this life, and therefore is not willing to fight. Just as a person who does not feel hunger is not inclined to cook. He has now decided to go into the forest and live a secluded life in frustration. But as a kshatriya, he requires a kingdom for his subsistence, because the kshatriya cannot engage themselves in any other occupation. But Arjuna has no kingdom. Arjuna's sole opportunity for gaining a kingdom lies in fighting with his cousins and brothers and reclaiming the kingdom inherited from his father, which he does not like to do. Therefore, he considers himself fit to go to the forest to live a secluded life of frustration. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshuran Meritam Yanam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति सावदन्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते तप्त कंचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे न चाशयो न पश्यामि हत्वा साधनमाहवे न कांक्षे विजयं कृष्ण न च राज्यं सुखानि च। I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Arjuna is expressing his feelings to Krishna just before the great battle between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. So on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, so he was seeing all his relatives, his Gurujan, his spiritual masters, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Bhishmadev. So he was reluctant to fight. And he was thinking to go to the forest and just live a life as Prabhupada is explaining here. Live a life of frustration. Because as a Kshatriya, actually it is natural that the Kshatriya will live in a palace and live very nicely with his family and have an opulent situation. So then for a Kshatriya to go to the forest and live very renounced, very simple, it will not be easy. And therefore, Prabhupada is writing there will be a life of frustration for him. But he was ready to do that because he didn't want to kill his superiors, his own, some of his family members. So that is the nature of of the devotee. The devotee, he wants to please the Supreme Lord. He wants to please the devotees of the Lord. He's thinking of the welfare for others. He's not thinking about his own happiness. So, Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that the conditioned souls, they are attracted by these bodily relationships and they're trying to be happy. And that is natural actually for the soul, to be happy. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Krishna is the source of everything. His body is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. And Mama Vamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. And the living entities, the part and parcels of Krishna. By nature, they're also eternal, blissful and knowledgeable. And everyone has a spiritual form with Krishna in the center, in the relationship with Krishna. And that is actually the normal situation. Jaiva Dharma, the constitutional position of the jiva, and that is to serve Krishna. So therefore, even in the conditioned state, the living entity, even being forgetful of Krishna, not understanding one's relationship with the Supreme Lord, not understanding that one is not this body but spirit soul. So being completely on the bodily platform, the living entity is trying to be happy, because it is the nature of the soul to be happy. So therefore the conditioned soul is trying to be happy in this material world. But it is not possible to be happy in this material world. Some happiness may be there in this material world, but it is temporary. It is material. It is related to this body, material body. So that is known as chapal sukha. That is flickering happiness, coming and going, and not permanent. Very shallow. So therefore, we can see in this material world even the richest person, so he cannot truly be happy. He has whatever he wants. Whatever he desires, he can get. But he cannot be completely happy in this material world. So some material happiness is there if one is healthy, if one is wealthy, if one is knowledgeable in this material world. So there's some happiness there, material happiness. But it is not permanent. Therefore, an intelligent person, he will try to approach the Supreme Being. He will try to engage in spiritual activities. He will try to find out about God. He will try to find out why he's here in this material world, why he's suffering, how he can become free. These questions, they come naturally to the conditioned souls in the human form of life. In other species, it is not possible to inquire about the absolute truth, to find out why we're here in this world, what will happen after death. So the animals, they don't know, and they cannot find out. But the human being has developed intelligence, which is meant actually to be used in order to inquire about the absolute truth, in order to engage in devotional activities, in spiritual activities, to understand one's real situation and a relationship with the absolute truth. So, the Supreme Lord Himself is coming to this world to enlighten the conditioned souls, or He sends His representatives, the Spiritual Master or the great saintly persons, and they will give this knowledge to the human beings so they may understand the purpose of life, so they may come to the devotional life. And being in the human form of life, so there are some rules and regulations to be followed. And even you can see in any country, the government is there and there's some rules and regulations to be followed. So of course one has to learn what are the rules and regulations, and then one has to follow. It is the duty of all the citizens to know the rules of the government. Like if one is on the street, one has a car, so one has to get a license, one has to know the rules. If one is driving, what for is the red light, green light, orange light, different signs, 60, 80, 100 is written there on the road. Someone has to know. It is the duty of the citizens to know, and what one has to do and what one should not do. So similarly, then the laws of nature are there, which one cannot transgress. And then the law of the Supreme Lord, the Vedic literatures are there, which are there for the conditioned souls to gain knowledge in order to advance in spiritual life, and also how to live in this material world. So that also Prabhupada has explained in the purport that Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes for a kshatriya. So first of all, one has to serve the Supreme Lord. That is actually the prime duty. That is the nature of the jiva. That is param dharma, the real dharma, religion. That is to serve the Supreme Lord in various ways. But then there are also secondary duties are there pertaining to one's situation in this world, and that is known as Vana Ashram. 4 Vanas are there and 4 Ashrams are there. So the Vanas are there, the occupational duties are there of Brahmana, that is a teacher, that is a priest, that is one who is engaged in the worship of the Lord. And then the Kshatriyas, the soldiers or the kings or the administrators, so who are looking after the kingdom or after a country, who are managing, who are ruling. And then the Vaishyas are there who are doing business, or they're taking care of the land and the cows. And then the Shudras, the ordinary workers who don't have so much intelligence like the other classes, but they have the ability to work. So there's a mutual reciprocation is there in the proper Varna ashram. So the Brahmanas are educating the other three Varnas, the Kshatriyas, because even the Brahmanas are educating the youth from the Brahmana family especially, that was the system before. But then even the Kshatriyas, they need to learn things, especially about devotional activities, devotional life. So the Brahmanas are there to teach, and the Vaishyas also, they have to learn. Even the Shudras, they need to learn, so that they may be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, so they may realize that actually they are not this body but spirit soul, that they are beyond even the Varna ashram. But while one is in this world, one has to act according to one Varna and one ashram. The 4 ashrams are there. The brahmachari life, that is celibate life, of studying first in childhood, in youth, and then after that, of course, one has to be engaged in one activity according to one's psycho-physical nature. And so some who are highly qualified spiritually, so they may not get married, they remain celibate, and they are under the guidance of the spiritual master, the teacher, and they devote themselves to the study of the scriptures, to Brahminical activities especially, of then teaching and then worshipping the deities and performing sacrifices. So, if one is not able to remain celibate, which only a few can, then one will enter the Grihastha ashram, household life, and then one will have a family and have some occupation, and in this way then take care of the family and take care of oneself, of course. And even there, in these 4 ashrams, there's a mutual relationship and service attitude is there, serving each other. That should always be there, the mood of trying to serve others, help others. And then, after living in the Grihastha ashram for 25 or 30 years, having raised a family, the children, and when they are grown up, then one can retire from family life, and even one can retire from one's work and dedicate oneself fully in God consciousness. And always we have to understand that Krishna, the God, has to be in the center. So then after that, so when the householder is retiring, then he will enter Vanaprastha ashram. Vankyo Prasthan, going towards the forest, that is Vanaprastha. So that means giving up all the comforts of family life, of opulent life, and then simply dedicate oneself in a simple way, without personal needs, personal sense gratification, but simply trying to serve the Lord, do everything for the Lord's pleasure, for Krishna's pleasure, Krishnendriya Priti. And those who are highly qualified, they enter the sannyasa ashram, who are then the teachers of the others. So Prabhupada is explaining that Arjuna, he appeared to have forgotten the moral codes of a kshatriya. So that refers to, as Prabhupada is explaining, 2 kinds of men are there. And the kshatriya who dies on the battlefield. And so that is actually usually the situation of the kshatriya. If he's there on the battlefield and fighting, or just about to fight, So he should fight, and then, well, there are two choices. One is that he wins, and then is happily situated, having conquered the enemy, and then usually having the wealth, then also from the conquered side. Or if one is dying, then actually if one dies on the battlefield, one is elevated. If the fighting is religious, if God is in the center, then one is elevated to the heavenly planets. That is explained, and Prabhupada has explained also. Then one can go to the sun planet, which is a higher planet, and then live there a wonderful life, materially speaking, better situated than in this material, than on the earthly planet. So there's a kind of elevation, but of course that is not the goal. The goal should be to go to the spiritual world. But even that may be possible if one is dedicated to the Supreme Lord, and if he's a fighter, a kshatriya, soldier, and if he has to fight, and if he dies on the battlefield remembering the Lord, then he will go to the Lord. Even Krishna has explained to Arjuna that he should fight. But thinking of me, you should fight. And then, ante kale chamamera smaram mukta kalevaram. Then if you remember me, you will come to me. So if one is a devotee and fully engaged in worshipping the Lord, and one is doing one's duty, and if one dies executing one's duty, so then one may reach the supreme destination. That is the abode of the Lord. So, but the kshatriya, so he should never leave the battlefield. So one who is doing so is considered to be coward. So that should never be done. It was never done amongst the kshatriyas, the real kshatriyas. So even if they were seeing that I cannot win, but they were not returning and thinking, no, there's no hope that I can win, let me just go home. That actually was not acceptable. And so therefore, rather than going home, being defeated, they would die on the battlefield. So that was the spirit for the kshatriyas. So therefore, Prabhupada is explaining that he appears to have forgotten the moral codes of a kshatriya, because he was saying that no, I don't want to fight here, seeing my relatives, my superiors, even though I may win and then gain victory and kingdom, so that to some extent that would be nice, but if my family members, my superiors are killed, then how can I enjoy then afterwards the kingdom and be happy? So from one point of view, we may say that that part is a wonderful kind of thinking, of consciousness, that he will not want to see his superiors killed, and then even if he's winning, then he can, so he will have victory, kingdom, but then he won't be really so happy. So that is a good thinking from that point of view. But so that is all right, but to think not to fight, that is not the proper etiquette for a kshatriya. So that is deviating from the principle of a kshatriya, that he will fight till the end of his life. And then Prabhupada is explaining also regarding the sannyasis who are renounced from this material world and who are trying to be engaged in spiritual activities. So if they are not attaining perfection and going to the spiritual world, it is also mentioned they can go to the heavenly planets or to the higher planets, the sun god. So actually we have to also understand here regarding that there are many planets. As we know, there are 14 planetary systems. 14. So we are on the earthly realm, Bhumandal. Bhumandal is also quite big, and that is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 5th canto. And we are actually in the innermost part of Bhumandal, that is known as Jambudvip. So the dweep means an island. It is a big island. It is surrounded by the ocean of salt. And that is actually divided in 9 varshas, 9 tracts of land. Jambudvip is divided in 9. So the Ilavrita Varsha is in the middle, and then there are 2 in the north, 2 in the south, 2 in the west, and 2 in the east, Varshas. So south, we are situated actually in the south. There are 2 Varshas, Kim Purush Varsha, and then the southern, even more south than that, is actually where we are situated, that is known actually as Bharatvarsha. But beyond the ocean of salt, there's another dweep. And then beyond that is another ocean. There's an ocean of sweet water, and there's an ocean of sugarcane juice, and there's an ocean of ghee, there's an ocean, and always after the ocean there's a dweep, there's an island. So bigger than the other one, of course, than previous one. So that is in Bhumandal only, but then the higher planets are there, the lower planets are there, 7 lower planetary systems are there, Sutal, Patal, Rasatal, and so on, and the hellish planets are there. And then upwards, if you go upwards, then the Bhuva Lok is there, which is higher, and there are many, so the planetary system is there, and then Svarglok is there, where Lord Indra is residing. So many planets are there. And then beyond that, there's Janalok, there's Tapalok, there's Mahalok, and then there's Satyalok. So the different planets are there, higher and higher. And the more going upwards, in order to go to the highest planet in this material world, someone has to be extremely qualified. So the sun planet is also higher. Someone has to be quite qualified in order to go there. And it is not so easy. But if one is, as explained here, if one is doing the duty of a Kshatriya properly and fighting for the right cause, so then one can go to the sun planet. Similarly, the sannyasis who are engaged in spiritual activities, who are studying the scriptures, who are teaching, so if they are not attaining perfection, they may go to the sun planet. So, but that is not the goal of life, that we have to clearly understand. But the goal of life is to go to the spiritual world. That is where the jiva, the living entity, belongs. He belongs to the spiritual world. But there's no use in going to the higher planets. That is only temporary stays there. And after one's pious activities, the result of the pious activities which one has performed in this world, so if they are so finished, then one will have to come back here. Just like in this material world, if one is earning nice money, one will go for some vacation, one may go to some beautiful place. And but after some time, one has to go back and work again. If the money is finished, one has to work again. So that is temporary. So even going to a higher planet system, that is temporary. But one will have to come back to this earthly plane that is known as Karma Bhumi. the place when one will work and then one will get some good result, and then one may, if one is worshipping the demigods, or as explained here, doing one's duty nicely, then one can go upwards. But the aim of life is actually to realize one's spiritual identity as a servant of God, of Krishna. And so realizing Krishna, that is the goal of life. And realizing Krishna means also realizing ourselves. Realizing ourselves means to realize Krishna. That goes hand in hand. So that has to be accomplished. And of course that is accomplished if one is under the direction of the spiritual master, the representative of the Lord, and if one is doing one's duty according to Varna ashram properly, but then specifically also engaging in spiritual activities, which is known as Mukhya Dharma or Mukhya Anga, the main limbs of devotional service, which are hearing about the Lord, remembering the Lord, serving the Lord in various ways. And especially most important in the age of Kali is chanting the holy names, the mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Arjuna, so from one point of view, as explained, and Prabhupada has also explained, that he was not willing to fight. So, because of his relatives or Gurujan, his superiors were there on the other side. But for a Kshatriya that was not natural. As a Kshatriya one has to fight. It is just natural to fight for a Kshatriya. He cannot be without being engaged in his natural propensity. So therefore Prabhupada is explaining, Kshatriya, he needs a kingdom. And he has to rule. Or in this, of course, nowadays, it's not that everyone can simply have a kingdom or rule, but that means also those who are having this propensity, they maybe then become manager in a big company. So in this way, so they have a kind of area where they can be properly situated and so rule, or not rule others, but organize the things. And of course nowadays, and even previously actually, so ruling means someone has the ability to rule and to see that everything will work out very nicely. But that should always be done in an expert way, in a humble way, in a respectful way, for the benefit of all the citizens. Even nowadays, you see in this world nowadays, so that is also usually recognized that, for example, the CEO, the chief executive officer of a company, so he has to manage everything. But he's not just ruling. In one sense he's ruling, and he will give orders, and he will tell one person to do this, the other person like that, supervising everything. So, but he has to be humble. He has to deal very nicely with everyone. And then he will be accepted. And then he will be successful. So always the humility has to be there, and the respect for others. Even if one is in a position, in a higher position, and is managing others, and so organizing the things. So it should be done in a humble way, respectful way. But then one has the power also to do the things. So that is the nature of Kshatriya. So Arjuna, of course, is a pure devotee of the Lord, and actually he was put in this position ultimately by the will of the Lord. And the Supreme Lord is most powerful, and definitely ultimately by his will then this battle happened, and then everyone was actually then, of course, according to Krishna's plan, so most of the Kshatriyas were killed. So that was Krishna's plan, and it was going to happen. So Arjuna, he had the choice then to do as Krishna wanted and then be successful. And actually the Supreme Lord, so he's most powerful and he can do everything himself. But at the same time, he's performing his pastimes, and he has his associates, his devotees, and then he's sometimes giving the opportunity to his devotees to execute his will. So that was the case here. So he wanted Arjuna to fight and to kill many of these Kshatriyas who are not so religious, except of course a few, like Bhishmadev, Dronacharya. They were actually righteous people, they were Kshatriyas, but they were forced to, due to circumstances, they were forced to be on the side of Duryodhana. And then Arjuna, he was then the instrument, and then so Krishna explained to him also, and then ultimately Krishna didn't force him, but he said, it is your choice, you can do whatever you want, or you do what I want. And then Arjuna, of course, as a devotee, he was doing what Krishna wanted. So Krishna wanted him to fight even against his spiritual masters, which is usually not done. We should never fight against the spiritual master, but then he had to do it, and then he did it. And then he gained victory and all the credit, and he is glorified even up to now as one of the greatest warriors, killing so many of the kings who are very powerful, but many of them, they were not righteous, and so they had to be killed. So by surrendering to Krishna, so he gained victory and opulence and fame. So many things came with that. And ultimately, so that is also for us, the instructions of the Bhagavad-Gita meant for us to learn, to surrender to Krishna, to do what Krishna wants. Not what we want, but many times, even as practicing devotees, sadhakas, we may have some desire, I want to do this, I want to do that, I need this, I need that. So, but ultimately we should try to do what Krishna wants and live a very simple life. So that is pure devotional service. Anyavilashita sunyam jnana karmanavritam anukulina Krishna nishirinam bhaktiruttamam. That is Uttam Bhakti, pure devotional service. Krishna Nushilanam, Anukul Bhav, favorable mood. As Krishna wants, we should serve. Not desiring anything for our own self. So, this Bhagavad-Gita is there for us to understand how to surrender to Krishna, and then we will gain all success. And Krishna is not forcing. As towards the end of Bhagavad-Gita, he told Arjuna that now you can decide, you can do whatever you want. So we always have the choice. We can Krishna is fully independent, he can do whatever he likes. But so Krishna is giving us also some independence. But that is very minute. And that we can choose to either serve Krishna, do what Krishna wants, or try to be independent and do what we want. So Krishna is not forcing anyone. So we have to willingly, lovingly, we have to take shelter of Krishna and do what Krishna wants. And then when we do that, then Krishna will be fully satisfied. Although Krishna, he doesn't need anything. He doesn't need us. He doesn't need our seva. He's Atmaram Aptakam. He's fully self-satisfied in himself. He's complete and perfect. But then so much variety is there to increase his pleasure, although he's already perfect. But still, that is the transcendental nature. It is ever increasing. And so the living entities, the devotees, are meant to serve Krishna, to give pleasure to Krishna, to augment his pleasure. And by doing that, then we will automatically be also satisfied. And then we can realize the transcendental bliss, Paramanand, the greatest bliss, which can only be had in relationship to Krishna, which is ever increasing, this transcendental bliss. So by willingly taking shelter of Krishna with love, then we can experience that bliss in reciprocation with Krishna. So he's most kind to his devotees and is very eager to have us be with him. So we should also try to develop this eagerness, loliam, to be always with Krishna, to always serve Krishna, hear about Krishna, speak about Krishna. But here in the conditioned state, so because we cannot immediately become perfect, so therefore we have to also act according to Vana Ashram and follow the orders of the spiritual master, follow rules and regulations known as Vaidhi Bhakti. So that has to be done, and then gradually one becomes elevated. And then one can come to the platform of spontaneous love towards Krishna. And then there is a loving relationship there and exchange. So, but in the beginning one has to follow the rules and regulations, and according to one's nature, so that by engaging devotional service with the help of the spiritual master and in purified consciousness, then we will understand what is best for us also, according to our psychophysical nature. And when we are properly situated, according to Vana Ashram, always with Krishna in the center and trying to always serve Krishna, so then we can advance nicely and peacefully. And then ultimately we come to the highest stage and realizing our spiritual existence and relationship with Krishna. So which is the goal of life? Atma Sakshatkar, direct experience, Sakshatkar, direct experience of the self, our own self. That is the goal of life. And that is possible only when Krishna is in the center of our life and we do everything for Krishna's pleasure. Then we can realize ourselves, and then we can realize Krishna's wonderful transcendental form, Satchidananda Swarup, beyond this material world. So Krishna is always transcendently situated, and he can only be understood by those who are engaged in devotional service. Adasi Krishna nama adi na bhavet kriyam indriyaya sevamukhe jivado swayam avaspurati ataha. So Krishna cannot be understood by the material senses. But when we are engaging our senses in the conditioned state, when they are not yet pure, but when we are engaging them in the service of the Lord, according to the instructions of the spiritual master, then the senses are purified. And then in purified state, then Krishna will actually reveal himself. And then we can see Krishna. So it is simply a question of time until we can come to the highest stage. So in a conditioned state, we have to follow the rules and regulations under the guidance of the spiritual master. And then our existence will be purified, and then eventually we can perceive our own self in Krishna's wonderful form, which is the goal of life. Any questions? Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. As you said, in the end, Lord Krishna is asking Arjuna, I have explained you everything. Now
Yes.
do as you like. So in the
Yes.
whole Bhagavad-Gita, he is trying to convince Arjuna that you say you don't want to fight him. He is giving so much explanation that you have to fight. So after listening so many conversations from Krishna, and Krishna is asking now do as you like. So
Yes.
he starts fighting them.
Yes.
So we can understand that when we come to Krishna consciousness, our spiritual masters guiding us at how we should serve in Krishna consciousness. And when we come and we see that we get different services and we do different services in serving Krishna consciousness, and we find pleasure in doing all those things. We are not thinking that we are doing by force or we are asked to do these things, but lovingly we are doing those things. So this is how that Krishna is giving us, inspiring each and every living entity to come to him. Right?
Yes.
Comments.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Give the mic to him.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just now we are discussing Arjuna is a pure devotee.
Yes.
Even a normal jiva, normal people, Krishna given full freedom.
Yes.
Free will.
Free will, yes.
But Arjuna is a pure devotee.
Yes.
Why he almost make him forced to fight? He is a supreme lord.
Uh-huh.
No, Arjuna is not available. He can find someone to finish the task.
Yes.
Why he seems to be forced? This is one question. Second question, when Arjuna asking question to Krishna, he knows that he is going to get the kingdom. When he followed the instructions of Krishna, Arjuna knew that he is going to get the kingdom. But he seems to be expect something better than kingdom. It is like something seems to be bargaining. What I can get? Something like that. Is Arjuna asking. Why?
So first, the first question.
Why he forced him?
Yes. So why Krishna, apparently it looks like he's forcing Arjuna to fight. So why is forcing Arjuna to fight? Although there's so many other people who could have done also. So, but that is here actually the loving relationship is there between Krishna and Krishna's devotee. And so Krishna is the Supreme Lord and Arjuna is his beloved devotee. It is like a relationship of father and son. Krishna is the Supreme Father. And Arjuna is just like his son. So it is natural that the father saw he is taking very nice care of the child, of the son. He's telling him what to do. He's telling him what not to do. And so then many times actually the father, he has to force the child, but lovingly, that you should do this and that will be good for you. That will be good for you. And because the child is not really able to, in the beginning, understand what is good for him. Like for example, the children, they want to play. They don't want to go to school. Why I should go to school? I want to play. And then, but the father then has to put some force. No, you should go to school. It is good for you. But the child cannot really understand. Yeah, even myself, when I was a small boy, even I had to go to, kindergarten, right? So before school you go to kindergarten, where now they have so many playway and lower KG, upper KG and whatever. And there's some play and they learn something little also. And I was thinking, why I should go to this kindergarten? Because they're the only playing. I was thinking, well, I can play without going to the kindergarten, why I should go? So I didn't really want to go. And I just wanted to play like this. And then, but my father was saying, no, you should go, it is good for you. And I didn't understand. So still for a few days I was not going. And my father was, of course, obviously he was trying to find a way to send me to the school. And then he was telling, well, your birthday is coming soon. So if you go nicely to school, if you go to kindergarten, then on your birthday I will give you one bicycle. But still I was thinking, well, I was a little intelligent. I was thinking, well, anyway, he give me the bicycle. He will give me the bicycle anyway, because my birthday is coming. So, but then I was thinking, still my father is always telling me to do school, to go to this kindergarten. And I was thinking, maybe it is maybe good if I do what my father says. And then ultimately then I went. And then I could understand also later that it was good. I went to kindergarten, I went to school, and I learned something, which otherwise you cannot learn so much, even not going to school. So the father is doing by force. He has to do by force because the child doesn't know and he wants to simply play. So similarly here Arjuna, he was speaking and Prabhupada is saying he was almost forgetting what is the mode of conduct for a kshatriya, what the kshatriya should do. He was educated, Arjuna. He had gone to school, and Dronacharya was their teacher, Kripacharya was another teacher, Bhishma Dev. They were teaching, so he knew. But at this point, he just forgot. He was bewildered that he should fight, but he didn't want to fight. No, how I can fight now? And let me just go to the forest. So therefore he had to force him, Krishna had to force him, that no, you should go. Because you will, if you don't fight, if you go to the forest, you will not be happy. Because you're a kshatriya. And you need to do something. If you go to the forest and just trying to meditate, you will not be happy. Because it is not your nature. So therefore you put some force. No, you should do that. You should fight. And because there was a need to fight. And because Krishna wanted to give him the glory also. Because Krishna is already glorious. And he could have killed anyone. And anyway, ultimately, by Krishna's will, they were killed. But Krishna was put as an instrument. So, for this reason, so he put some force. But then still after pushing him, still then he was saying, well, you do what you want. Because Arjuna was grown up. And like, for example, child, you can force more. But if one is grown up, then usually the father, even according to the scriptures, Niti Shastra, that till 5 you have to put some pressure. Well, first you pamper the child till 5. You let him play, he can do whatever he wants, the child, but still a little control has to be there. From 5 to 15, the father has to put pressure on the child. And if sometimes he wants to do something, the father knows it's not good, he has to say, no, this is nonsense, don't do that. And this is for the good of the child. And then after 15 till 20, then again he has to make friendship. And he has to speak to him. My dear son, this is not so good. But then he will not push him so much. He will suggest to him, and then he will say, now you do as you like. But I'm just telling you, my experience, that will not be good. So some fuss is there, but then he's giving the choice also. It is your choice. You have to make the choice. Like that. So he was doing like this with Arjuna. He was speaking strongly for his benefit, but then he was giving him the choice. But I'm telling you, strongly he was telling, but then you have the choice. You can do what you want. So then he accepted and he surrendered like that. And second, what was that?
Krishna knew.
Yes.
Arjuna knew that when he followed the instruction of Krishna,
Yes.
he is going to get the kingdom.
Yes.
At the same time, he can follow the instruction of Krishna. Why he is bewildered? Yeah.
Why is bewildered? Yes. Well, main bewilderment was because he was seeing his relatives there. That was the main reason. Yeah. The Gurujan especially. Gurujan, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Bhishmadev, the teachers. It is mentioned in the scriptures that one should, well, with body, mind and words, one has to respect the spiritual master. And so it is mentioned one should speak always very nicely with his superiors. One should respect with the mind, with the words, the superior. That is mentioned in the scriptures, and it is obvious. One cannot shout at the spiritual master, hey, why are you telling me this? No. If one has some doubt, then very humbly, my dear spiritual master, my dear father, I don't know why you're telling me to do this. I don't know. I don't understand. Please explain. In a humble way. So, mentally, vocally, and what to speak of physically, one has to be respectful. So how he could now fight with his spiritual master? That should not be done. How he can shoot an arrow at his spiritual master? He was not willing to do that. How I can do that? So therefore he was bewildered. That I have to fight against my own spiritual masters. How I can do that? So that was his the reason for his not willing to fight. And then being bewildered to some extent. Okay? Okay, last.
Prabhuji, this is not today's subject, but the matter with this for Kurukshetra war.
Yes.
Suppose, for example, you are Krishna's side, I am Duryodhana's side. Suppose I am Duryodhana, you are Krishna. You are supposed to protect your soldiers, right?
Yes.
I heard some 2-3 class.
Yes.
About 64 crores died in the war.
Yes.
Only Krishna and Pandavas survived.
Yes.
Everyone killed. At least Krishna saved his soldiers,
His soldiers.
Like
Yeah. Well, the thing is, everyone has to die, sooner or later. Everyone has to die, right?
Yes.
You cannot avoid. So therefore, the soldiers, they had to die. It was time for them to die. So that's why they died, that's all. Like, for example, you go on a plane, somebody's going on the plane, like 100, 200 people, and then somehow there's some engine failure, and the plane goes down, crashes, everybody dies. They just had to die. But there are so many flights, 1,000 flights, and we always hope that the plane doesn't crash, right? Or that there are no terrorists on board. We hope, and Only once upon a while it happens that plane crashes. But when it's a time, when your time is up, nothing you can do. And you die. So the time was up for them. They had to die. So then why Krishna had to protect them? They had to die. But they were facing Krishna, and those who were devotional, then they were benefited, either going to the heavenly planets, or those who are maybe pure devotees, then they were going to Krishna. Very simple, but they had to die, and everyone has to die. For one who has taken birth, death is certain, even for the devotee. Devotee is also appearing and is disappearing, but everyone has to leave the body, sooner or later. So it was a time for them to die, so they were dying, that's all, very simple. But Krishna was very kind to all his devotees. Even Abhimanyu, he was on Krishna's side, he was fighting, but he had to die and he was killed, not in a nice way, but it was just meant to be like that, it was destiny. But he fought on behalf of the Lord. So he was more fortunate, most fortunate. So, so what to do? We have to die sooner or later. And he was only 16.5 years old, 17, Abhimanyu. He was young, but he had to die. And you can see nowadays also, even as devotees sometimes, some accident and devotees die even when they're young sometimes because they had to go. Destiny is there. So they had to die, so it was the time for them to die, and they died, that's all. But those who were with Krishna, so they were fortunate and then they were benefited. Okay? Hare Krishna.